Okay, guys, we're going to be letting the cat out of the bag. For the last 9 months, I have been using one camera and one lens when it comes to all of my photography needs, and it has been a wild journey. The camera and lens that I have been using are no other than the Leica M11P and the 35mm Apo Summicron. So instead of talking about just this camera in particular, we're going to go dive deeper behind the philosophy of carrying one camera and one lens. So to get you guys up to speed on my personal photography journey, we have to start with the origin camera, the camera that started off for me personally, which is this Nikon Coolpix L810. Great little camera. I had no clue what I was really doing, but I enjoyed the process of creating images. And this is the camera that I use right here, this little camera. Now, keep in mind, this camera has zoom. Just imagine you can pop the lens and like it zooms. It's cool. Great little camera. This is my first little camera, guys. Then I proceeded to graduate to this little pup. This is the Nikon D5600. Same concept. It doesn't have internal zoom, but it does have a lens. This is the kit lens that has zoom on it. Same type of deal with the zoom situation. Now, keep in mind that zoom situation, it's all going to come full circle in a minute. And then finally, I got this bad boy. This is the Sony a7 IV. Phenomenal camera. And again, the lens of choice that I used for this camera was zoom. And I actually really went down the rabbit hole with this one. I got the Trinity lens lineup for all the zooms, the 16 to 35, 24 to 70, and the 70 to 200. Now, I currently only own the 24 to 70. I sold the other two lenses. What I had gotten after this Sony a7 IV that kind of changed my eyes in terms of this philosophy of one camera, one lens, was I got the Fuji X100VI. And I got that last year. And this camera literally represented one camera, one lens. If you guys aren't familiar, the Fuji X100VI is a fixed focal length. You can't even change the lens on it, equivalent to 35 millimeters. And it's this small little compact camera that I also embodied the philosophy of carrying a camera everywhere I went, and really enjoyed that camera. It was a phenomenal camera. I took it to Thailand for 2 months, explored Thailand. That was my first trip overseas. And I had this little camera right there with me everywhere I went, documenting the little moments. And that is what shifted my course in terms of photography. And just that like aspect of documenting life. That is what I would coin that camera was for me, was just this tool to document my life and to be more intentional with how I document my life. But the Fuji has led me here. And it's been this like fun journey in terms of photography, in terms of, getting here. This is the Leica M11P with a 35mm Apo Summicron, which just this setup right here, hands down, phenomenal. And that core principle remained from the Fuji was just using one camera and one lens. And that's all I bought for this camera, was just that one body and the one lens. It put me in this like really interesting space, embodying that core philosophy of carrying a camera everywhere I went, while also using just one tool, one lens, one camera, and really getting to understand that camera and lens on a deeper level, like the back of my hand, literally with all the menu settings, all the little buttons and features on the camera. And it's still something I'm definitely still learning to this day, but really going deep with one specific tool is what I am doing and what I'm learning. But if I could go back in time and tell the younger photography me one piece of advice, it would be to use one camera and one lens, and to use a prime lens. Guys, just that idea of prime versus zoom is probably up for debate nowadays. Primes versus zooms in terms of image quality are pretty on par. However, it's the philosophy of what a prime represents. A prime lens is one lens that is one focal length. You can't change the focal length, and you have to zoom with your feet. And throughout my entire journey, like I said, I was using pretty much zoom lenses up until the Fuji. And then I got that, and that really showed me the just like mental shift in terms of, if I want to compose an image, if I have this idea of an image in my head, I can't just zoom. I have to literally move and play and interact with my environment. And doing that while you're interacting with your environment, you're seeing new, unique perspectives. And that one fundamental shift really changed the way I shot. If I pull up to a scene and I have this idea of the photo in my mind and I want to capture it, I will play around with different shots in that same scene, different compositions until one finally hits the nail on the head. And that's what was the mental unlock for me. So if you're a photographer, if you're like a new photographer, if you're just starting out or you're wanting to go down the world of photography, or even if you're a seasoned vet, I challenge you to just use one lens, one camera, preferably a prime lens. Guys, I'm telling you, it will change the way you see. And then I think about this fact of less is more. In a world where there are so many different cameras you can choose from, literally, like you can see, I've definitely had my fair share of different cameras I've used over the years. But now I'm here with this camera right here. And like I said, it's been 9 months with this bad boy. In those 9 months, I've taken this camera literally everywhere. And it's been my one and only camera that I've been using. This camera has been backpacking with me across the world. I literally just went backpacking for 6 months. Hawaii, Japan, Australia, Southern Europe, Italy, Portugal, Switzerland, Spain. Guys, this camera has been and seen some things so far in this little short life I've lived with it. And I'm super excited to take this thing more places in the future and really hone in on that philosophy of just using one camera, one lens, and creating more with less. Now, when I think about my journey, when I had my backpack with my Sony a7 IV, I had my 3 zoom lenses, the trinity of the lenses. I could pick from either wide, I can go super telephoto, I could do it all. And that right there was the one thing that I literally struggled with, was just that mental anxiety, that lens anxiety of like, what should I pick? And literally I've been there. I've been there, guys. And I'm so thankful that I was there, that I learned that lesson. Now I'm here, and now I just came back from this backpacking trip with just this one camera, learning this camera more in depth, getting to know it on a deeper level. And what I've come to learn, I literally have this one camera, one lens, and I just had to make do with it. I had no other choice. And that is a beautiful thing. And I know you might be like, well, what if you wanted to do like a telephoto shot? Or what if you want to do like this super wide shot? I would have to make do with that camera and that lens. I had no other choice. And I had to create with what I had. And I really find there's a core freedom in that. By limiting yourself, you actually gain more freedom. It's quite an interesting juxtaposition, but I find truth in that. And I find truth in just this knowing of like, I have this one tool. And when I go out, when I want to capture life, when I want to document this life, I just have this one tool. And it is kind of liberating, and not having to think about, what lens should I put on? What focal length would look best on this scene? Or, should I do this? Just that that like anxiety of like, what should I do? What should I pick? What should I use for this situation? This camera represents a photographer's tool at its core. This thing literally only takes images too. Like, you can't even take video with it. So that's a whole nother thing that I just eliminated completely. If I just have this camera around, I only can take photos, and I only have this one focal length, and I have to just shoot. I just have to shoot. And I find that just having to shoot, just shooting with this one lens, one camera, has made me, is it justifiable to say you're a better photographer? I don't know. It's all a journey, but it's literally made me more aware, more observational, more just like leaning on my creativity. I find myself shooting in unique ways, or, shooting stuff that I just wouldn't have ordinarily have shot. And I find that is very liberating and very freeing for my inner creativity. Is just leaning on that one tool, having that one tool at my side, and that tool just being there. Like, it just is one thing. It represents one thing, 35 millimeter images. That's all it can do. I want to continue creating, and I want to continue just using this one tool, seeing where it takes me. My challenge to myself was 1 year with just one camera, one lens. Like I said, I'm 9 months in on that journey, And in January of 2026, I will be 1 year into that journey. Will I try other focal lengths, other lenses, possibly other camera bodies? Who knows? Maybe in the future. But for now, I'm just going to stick with this and I'm going to see where this takes me. And I'm going to really hone in on this lens and on this camera. This idea of mastery, mastering a tool, mastering a craft, mastering a skill requires you to have systems in place. And for that system, I am using the Leica M11P with the 35 mil and just really honing in on that and seeing where it will take me. So as we come to a close, in the comments below, let me know what system you guys are using in terms of your photography journey right now and the philosophy of one camera, one lens. If you have, or if you're thinking about boiling down your camera gear to one camera and one lens, what would it be? Leave it in the comments below. And with all that, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you guys want to hear more of my thoughts about photography, about traveling, about life, I have started a newsletter, link in the description. I've coined it Lens of Life. Just my perspective on this life, a little more sprinkling of my philosophy. It's a more intimate space with also exclusive photos that I don't release anywhere else, and just exclusive thoughts on life and projects that I'm working on. So if that is something of interest to you, definitely check it out. Link in the description. Also, Instagram, link in the description. Check it out. I have my photos up there and I kind of post a little behind the scenes of life. With all of that, it has been a pleasure. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day, wherever you are, wherever you might be. I hope you have a great one. Peace.